economy. Us here at Truthloader will be the first ones to admit that we have quite a bit of trouble understanding it. But if we've learnt anything in recent years, is that politicians quite like it that way. Because if us, the little people, the ones who vote, really understood what was going on, then we probably wouldn't like it all that much. Well, we decided it was time to try and shine some light on what it is that politicians are keeping from us. So we've teamed up with Renegade Economist, a band of self-described renegade thinkers who challenge what they say is the misinformation being supplied by our political and financial institutions. They are also the people behind the award-winning documentary Four Horsemen, which you can watch for free on their YouTube channel Renegade Economist. A link to this should be appearing on the screen right now. You can also find a link to the Renegade Economist website in the description below. To put it mildly, these guys know a lot more about the economy than us. So sit back, maybe get yourself a cuppa and prepare to be shocked as they let us in on what the politicians have been keeping from us about the economy.
One of the things that politicians won't tell you about the economy is that bankers are not actually wealth creators. Bankers are wealth destroyers, and this is how it happens. Bankers are allowed to create money out of thin air and lend it at interest. When they do this, they put pressure on what we call the real economy. So what we have to differentiate is money and wealth. Money can be created out of thin air and lent at interest. Wealth can't be. Wealth has to be defined as products, services, and experiences that value creators, i.e. the people who work in the real economy, create. And basically that's how our system works. Without value creators, there can be no value extractors. Bankers are actually value extractors. So how do they do it? Well, by creating money out of thin air and lending it interest, what happens is more money enters the system, which pushes the price of experiences, services, and products up, thus making it harder for people who are value creators in the real economy to function. So, as opposed to bankers being wealth creators, actually, bankers are wealth destroyers. So the other thing that politicians will not tell you about the economy is that high house prices are actually bad for the real economy. The reason? Well, governments don't get elected if house prices are going down. So why are they bad? Well, when we look at consumables and commodities and products that we use every day, and we see that the cost of living is going up, we say collectively, well, this is a bad thing. But why is it different when we look at housing? Well, one of the reasons is because we use housing as an investment vehicle. And this is disastrous because what it does is it sucks capital out of the economy and puts it into an unproductive asset. So when politicians say, don't worry, house prices are going up, what we should all do is worry, because actually house prices going up means we have a bigger squeeze on the rest of the economy. So the thing that they won't tell you is that house prices going up is actually bad generally for everybody, but it does benefit minorities of people. The fire sector, financial, insurance and real estate businesses, they of course benefit. Certain people who have the cash to buy houses and see the uplift in value, of course it benefits them. So politicians pander to these groups to try and win votes at election time. But it's counterintuitive and ultimately it sets us on the wrong path. Another thing politicians won't tell you about the economy is that the current economic paradigm that we live under, namely neoclassical economics, is not actually good for people or planet, and this is the reason. Firstly, neoclassical economists, when they start to model the economy, they don't factor in three things. And this is why their models are so totally and utterly useless when it comes to modeling or predicting what's going to happen in the economy. The three things when they're analysing capitalism that they do not include are banks, debt and money. If you leave banks, debt and money out of your models when you're trying to analyse capitalism, there is absolutely no way that you can do it with any certainty whatsoever. It's like going to a doctor and saying, look, I know there's something wrong with me, but can you not have a look at my brain, lungs and heart, because I don't think actually they're relevant. Of course, banks, debt and money are massively relevant to the capitalist economy. And as long as neoclassical economists leave banks, debt and money out of their models, there is absolutely no way that they can analyse capitalism or judge what's going to happen in the real economy with any certainty. But it gets worse, because it isn't just bad for people not understanding how capitalism works, it's also bad for planet. And one of the reasons why we see so much ecological destruction and environmental degradation now is because neoclassical economists leave out a very vital piece of information when it comes to what we call factors of production. There are three factors of production: land, labour and capital. And the neoclassical economist never factors land into his or her models. So we as a race or as a species are incentivized to destroy the planet because we never see land, and when I say land I'm talking broadly about all natural resources, as a unique factor of production. If you're eliminating, or if you've got a selective amnesia about these things, of course, A, you're not going to be able to model the economy, and B, you're going to push it to booms, busts, and environmental disasters on a regular basis because you've only got about a third of the information. The other thing that politicians won't tell you about the economy is that actually it's divided into two very distinct groups. One group is the predatory group, which chase value. The other group is actually the value-creating group, which look to create products, services, and experiences in the real economy that adds to everybody's life. So how does it work? Well, the predators go and look for value, whilst the producers create value in the real economy. Let's take, for instance, the NHS. That's a value-creating organisation. It gets people better, it creates experiences, and it creates products that enhance people's lives. In fact, save people's lives. One of the reasons that the NHS is under so much fire at the moment is because the financial sector understands that if it can get into the NHS, a value-creating business, and start charging heavily for those services, that it will make a lot more money. What happens when it does start charging heavily for that services? Well, inefficiency. Real inefficiency, and although they dub it as inefficient at the moment, when a predatory financial organisation gets its teeth into these services, quality generally goes down over time. So what needs to be protected? Well, obviously value-creating businesses have to be protected. Why? Well, because without value-creating businesses, there couldn't be a financial sector. So logically, if they continue buying value-creating businesses and taking the value out of them and privatizing that value, we are all much worse off. So that's the divide, producer and predator. And unless the predators are monitored, regulated, and watched very carefully, what we have is a free-for-all and ultimately huge monopoly. The other thing that politicians won't tell you about the economy is actually we live in a rentier society now. What does that mean? Well, we live in a society that is fundamentally driven by what's called rent-seeking. Rent-seeking is apportioning wealth that is created by others. And there's many ways that you can do this. But one of the chief ways that you can do it is to lobby politicians so they change rules within the statute books, which allows businesses to get an unfair advantage over other businesses and monopolize markets. So, how does this happen? Very simple. A lobbyist will speak to the government and suggest reasons why they should change rules that are favourable, say, to the financial sector. And when they've changed those rules, the financial sector can then go out and sell products around that rule change and take profit out of the system for doing so. This is a source of huge wealth inequality, because the more that you skew the playing field towards the financial sector, the more and more inequality goes up as wages in that sector inflate hugely, whilst wages in the real economy go down. So when we live under the duress of rent seeking, everybody in the real economy actually gets poorer. But politicians won't use the word rent seeking because they say the electorate won't understand it. Well, the electorate understand very well that when corporate power lobbies government to keep other players out of the market, that inequality is a natural byproduct of that. What we have to do is really focus on the rent-seeking paradigm and have our elected leaders understand that the electorate knows what that means. Until we put pressure on our elected leaders, these professional politicians won't change anything.
So there you have it, the 5 things politicians will never tell us about the economy. As always, you can let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Till next time.